Welcome to my weekly roundup of all the motorsport news and F1 news that has happened over the last week or is happening over the coming week. I'll also tell you where you can watch this weekend's racing action, and this weekend is the Japanese Grand Prix. So, plenty to get into. Let's get straight into it. Right then, so first of all, this is the Gone in 60 Seconds channel. Please do make sure you're subscribed. It is very important to me. It makes a massive difference. We've got loads of new videos up. We've got the new BMW iX3, a 500 mile EV on there, which is a first review and drive, and also a review of the Peugeot 5008, which is a plug-in hybrid, just to see whether it really stacks up against all the new rivals in the category, of which there are plenty. There's also the iGo Cross on there, the new Lexus LM, lots and lots to come as well. We've filmed the new Ioniq 9 and a VW Transporter. So we've got quite a few cars coming up on there, which are going to be very, very interesting if you're into your cars. So please do make sure you're subscribed. And then this channel, the PGF1 channel, where all the motorsport news comes, and I'll post videos every single week on any news that pops up. So make sure you're subscribed to that one as well, because we split them across the two just to make it easier. So please make sure you are subscribing to both. Right, let's get straight into the news. Now, as I record this, it's Friday, so we've had practice 1 and 2 at Suzuka because they are quite early in the morning. So, Piastri was fastest, looked pretty quick, to be fair, all day. Norris hit plenty of problems. So, but the McLarens look pretty good, to be fair. They do look pretty good. You've got Piastri, you've got the two Mercedes, and then the two Ferraris. The Ferraris don't look quite as good as they did in the first two races, but I just don't think they've quite tied it all up and turned everything up yet. It does remain to be seen in qualifying whether the McLarens will still be that much ahead, or whether Mercedes just haven't turned everything up yet. It was very interesting. Williams looked a bit better. Alpine looked a lot worse. You have to say that the Haas cars still look pretty good. The Red Bulls still look terrible, and there was a lot of controversy about surrounding Max Verstappen at this race. He's kicked out a journalist because he didn't like his questioning at Abu Dhabi last year. There is videos doing the rounds that show that they're losing 50 miles an hour or 50 kilometers an hour on the straights because of the clipping, and the batteries recuperating energy in that Red Bull. So he is struggling, and he is not a happy bunny at all. On that thing about the journalist, it's really interesting. So, to give you a quick recap, he sat down for his press conference, like he does every single week. They're at a race. All the written journalists come to the motorhome or the hospitality unit and sit down, and they ask some questions. And he spotted one journalist, and he said, "Right, I'm not answering any questions until you get out." Well, what's this about? Is it about the questions I asked you in Abu Dhabi? And he's like, yeah, get out. And he had to leave. And then the press conference continued. And do you know what that is about? So in Abu Dhabi, this journalist asked Max Verstappen if his punting George Russell in Barcelona last year is what cost him the title. If that moment of madness, that red rag to a bull kind of red mist moment where he purposely used his car as a weapon against George Russell, is that what's cost him the title? And actually, if you look at the points, it is, because, you know, if he'd have scored good points on that day, like he was set to score points on that day, then that probably would have been enough to win him the title. But at that point in time, obviously the car was terrible, everything was not good. So it's an interesting thought process, but the fact that Max is still very, very salty about it is kind of a little bit interesting, because it kind of opens up a window into his mind. Does it just prove that he is actually rattled by that he does think that losing it in that moment has cost him the title? Or does he not? Does he look at it differently? Is it a case of being surrounded by a type of negativity, or what is it? What do you think? Tell me in the comments below what you think, because I think the psychology of Max Verstappen is very, very interesting indeed. Of course, Max Verstappen also raced last weekend while there was no F1 racing. He went and was racing at the Nürburgring, in his Mercedes AMG GT car, and he won the race again. He won, but was disqualified for using too many tyres. So a little bit of a shame, but again, just proved his class. And once he's behind the wheel, when he's got his head on, he is absolutely fantastic. So interesting racing going on. I mean, I must admit, I enjoyed watching it. I watched bits of it. There was also IMSA last weekend and Formula E, all of which I watched bits and pieces of, or as much of as I could. And the racing is so different in different categories, but always absolutely fascinating to watch. Next story I found is George Russell complaining that everyone's trying to slow us down. I don't think it's right, which, I'm sorry, George, but you're not coming across as very likeable at the moment, and I'm going to be very, very blunt about it. You're whinging and you're moaning, and it's just not cool. You're genuinely coming across as a bit of a silly sausage, and I don't like it at all. You're just not coming across as likeable. Yes, if you're in the fastest car, everybody will be looking to try and find ways to slow you down. That is just the way of the world. It's how it's always happened, when Red Bull is, there's holes in their brakes. When it was McLaren last year, it was, they must be water cooling their brakes. There's always something, right? Everyone's bitching at them. That's just the way of the world. When you've got a very fast car, people are always trying to nobble your advantage because it plays to their disadvantage, right? And tries to rein them back in. So of course, whinging about it is just ridiculous. I have to say with George Russell, he just doesn't come across to me like the kind of person I'd like to go to the pub with. Do you know what I mean? I was so happy to see Kimi Antonelli win, and I really, really like Kimi Antonelli. He's just got such a likeable kind of personality that I know I do struggle with George. I think he comes across as a little bit entitled, and I don't like that at all. Anyway, moving on. Do you agree? Tell me in the comments below. Honda have said their power unit vibration is now at an acceptable level on the dyno. Well, we will see it if at Suzuka on track it is going to be acceptable or not. They had Jack Crawford in the seat in practice 1 because he's a reserve driver and they have to do that so many sessions a year, and Fernando Alonso turned up late to the track because his first child was born last week, so took a little bit extra time to get there and missed the media day, so it just kind of made sense to put Jack Crawford in. So we will see how they stack up and whether they can complete more of the race this weekend, which would be great for them on Honda's home turf, of course. Some news here about the Mad Ring, the new Madrid circuit. They're actually starting to lay the asphalt. I'm genuinely worried about this track making it. It's actually not that long until they have to have this ready. And at the minute, it still looks like a bit of a wasteland. And I am genuinely quite worried about it because just having a piece of tarmac isn't really enough to run a Formula 1 race. Is it going to be ready? And I genuinely am very worried about this not happening. And of course, we've already got 2 races that look like they aren't happening. So, yes, a bit of a worry for me. Right, then we've got some new liveries. So the V-Carb, the Visa Cash App Racing Bowl, has this stunning new red and white livery for the Japanese Grand Prix. I really like that. It's based on the Red Bull Cherry cans, so that's the tie-in. And of course, the Japanese flag is red and white, so that's why they've done that. I like that a lot. I think that looks absolutely brilliant. I'm a real big fan of that. Haas, I've got Godzilla-inspired livery, and it's okay. I mean, I love the Haas livery as it was. There's just some Godzilla elements on there, and it kind of looks just a bit more pop arty, a bit more cartoony, which is kind of cool. But I love that livery as it was. So, we'll see what it looks like on track. I thought it looked okay, but definitely not as good as the Racing Bulls. And Mercedes have done this wolf thing, which seems to be like some kind of Adidas tie-in, and I think that looks horrific. I just personally, these things are subjective. Tell me, if you like it? It just looks like one of those jumpers that crazy people buy in markets with wolves on them. You know what I mean? Do you know the kind of people I mean? So that's that. Right, next up. They're making us even slower. So the FIA have changed the rules just before practice. They decided to cut the energy level for qualifying that you're able to recoup on a lap. They were originally permitted to recharge their batteries to the maximum of the lowered rate of 9 megajoules per lap, as they were in Shanghai. But this has now been reduced to 8 This has been reduced to 8 rather than 9, closer to the limit of 7 megajoules used at the opening race of Melbourne. So the problem here is there is a lot of worry that with a circuit like Suzuka, it's going to change the profile of how people drive this circuit. Now, if you turn up in a car with unlimited power and energy, then the limit is going to be how well you can get on the brakes, turn the car, get into the corners, get on the accelerator and push the car without destabilizing it in as best time as possible. And that is what we all love to watch as racing, because you've got cars dancing at the edge of the limit, and those are the things that we want to see. The problem is here we're going to see quite a lot of people lifting and coasting into corners, because if you lift off the accelerator, then the motors almost work in reverse and put energy back into the battery. And you need that battery power, you need it to go back in the battery to give you enough energy to go faster down the next straight. That's how these work. That's how these new hybrids work. And it's fair enough, because everyone's got the same, so it's a level playing field. But it does make some of the corners that used to be challenges less challenging, because everyone's lifting off rather than just trying to go in there at the last minute and push every last second out of cornering. So it takes some of the challenge out of that. But it adds different challenges in different places. So whilst I've been quite open in saying, look, drivers have always had to manage something, whether that's tyre life, fuel amounts, you know, all these sort of things have always been there in Formula Racing. So people moaning about having to manage and all these sort of things shouldn't really be a problem or an issue. I do think that you do lose something in that spectacle, and this is why they've tried to do this. So if you lower the amount people are allowed to recharge, then they should technically be recharging less, which means some of those corners should still be a little bit of a challenge. And as we can see, there's an article on the race here where it just shows that this particular circuit is one that just shows up this flaw as one of the biggest flaws in this regulations set. When you go to other races, it's just going to be flat out. You know, if you go to Singapore and Monaco and races where there's loads of opportunities to use the brakes which recharge, then you're not going to have these same issues. But these fast flowing circuits like Suzuka and Silverstone, Monza are all going to be much, much more difficult for these regulations, and it's definitely going to take something away from qualifying. Whereas the racing will probably be more fun and more interesting, qualifying is where it's going to be more obviously difficult for them, and it will take something away from the spectacle. So I'm keen to know what you think about that. Obviously we'll watch qualifying and see if that's actually helped, how it looks, and then, you know, there's a 4 or 5 week break between the next race in Miami, so there will be probably changes to the regulations in that time, just to try and tighten up qualifying and make it look a bit more like a spectacle. So I think that is what we're going to look at and how we're going to see what happens next. But I'm keen to see what you think of this. Let's have the conversation. Do you like these regulations? What would you do to change it, to improve it, on the basis that you have to keep the hybrid, you have to keep as close to 50-50 split on the battery and the electrifying as you can, just because the road relevance in that and hybrids being such a popular thing is really, really key to having Audi there, having Ford there, having Honda back in the sport. So, you know, it is really, really important that you have all these manufacturers trying to make the right things, because it just brings a lot of investment and eyeballs on the sport. So how would you tweak it? What would you do? Would you make it so that you can have a bigger percentage of ICE power in the qualifying and then change it in the race? Would you, what would you do? How would you do it? Would you make the energy limit higher so you can recharge quicker? It's interesting because there's lots of different theories about what people should and shouldn't do, and everybody's got a view on this. So I'm interested to know constructively. Pop in the comments below what you think, and just put them in the bin. I mean, you can type that if you like, but you know, it's not going to be happening, is it? You know, this regulation set is here to stay, and the whole point of putting these regulations into sport is because all of the manufacturers throw everything at it, and that's how you get this pace of development, and these things become more ready for the road, and this technology gets better and better and better because all this money and time is being focused on it as quickly as possible to get it right for the racetrack. And it just has this massive knock-on effect that the manufacturers are learning so much, and it becomes part of the cars that we see on our road in the next year and the next year. And this is shone throughout the history of motorsport, you know. So that's why it's important and why it's going to keep going that way. And we need to see how this works. And I'm really keen to see that. And I'm keen to know what you think as well. Now let's look at the M Sport Extra calendar. We've got the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend. Also got IndyCar in Barber, which will be on Sky Sports F1, and MotoGP in USGP over on TNT Sports. All the timings are there on the M Sport Extra calendar. Please do make sure you go across and follow him as well. And your F1 timings to watch Formula 1 on your telly box. We're here on Saturday, so practice 3 is at 2:30, qualifying is at 6 a.m. on Saturday, and then Sunday morning, don't forget the clocks change on Sunday, so make sure you set your alarm on your phone. Sunday morning, 5 a.m. the programme starts, but 6 a.m. for lights out, and away we go. There you go. That is your roundup for this week. All of the news and conversation. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.